All right, so you want to dive into this whole hustle culture thing? It's everywhere these days, right?
Totally,
It's
yeah.
like the always on rise and grind kind of mentality.
Hmm.
And, part of me gets it right.
Oh, yeah.
Like, who doesn't want to be successful and productive and,
Sure.
crush it?
Absolutely.
But the sources you sent are making me think there's like a whole other side to
Yeah,
this kind of dark side.
for sure. Well, it's interesting, right? Because hustle culture kind of like preys on that desire we all have,
Yeah.
to be validated to achieve things.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like an addiction in a way. You
Mm.
get hooked on those initial rewards,
Yeah.
the, promotions, the recognition.
Right.
But just like any addiction, it can get out of control.
And that's what happened to the person in that one story, right?
Yes.
The freelancer.
Yeah,
They totally bought into that whole hustle harder thing.
they did.
Working like 80-hour weeks to climb the ladder, and I mean, they were successful. But it sounds like it came at a huge cost.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, panic attacks, insomnia, even a trip to the ER with heart palpitations.
Yeah,
That's intense.
it is.
Like, I mean, we all get stressed, but that's next level.
That's right. It's like your whole system is overloaded.
Yeah.
Like imagine driving your car at 100 miles per hour nonstop.
Oh, wow.
Eventually something's going to break down.
Right.
And in this case, it was their health.
That makes sense.
It's what's often called an adrenal system crash.
Mm.
It's like your body's stress response system is just totally fried.
Oh, wow.
And the sources you sent mentioned that this can lead to all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
Like weight gain, insomnia,
Mm.
a weakened immune system, even an increased risk of heart disease.
So it's not just about feeling kind of tired or overwhelmed.
Right.
It's like serious long-term health consequences.
Exactly.
And this isn't just an isolated case, is it?
Oh, no, not at all.
You sent me some research that suggested this is pretty widespread.
It's it. One study found that 72% of workers report experiencing at least some symptoms of burnout.
Wow.
It's become so normal now to be this busy.
Yeah.
Like we wear it as a badge of honor.
Right. Like if you're not hustling, you're not doing it, right?
Exactly.
But that's dangerous.
It is. We
Yeah.
need to change how we see this.
For sure.
Pushing ourselves to the point of exhaustion isn't a sign of strength.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Okay, so we've established that hustle culture can be a serious threat to our well-being.
Right.
But what can we actually do about it?
Well, that's where those practical tips you sent come in.
Yeah.
Things like setting boundaries,
Yeah.
the 80-20 rule time blocking.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about being lazy
Right.
or giving up on your goals.
Yeah.
It's about working smarter, not harder,
I like that.
and prioritizing your well-being in the process.
Okay, so let's talk about the 80-20 rule.
Okay.
What's that all about?
So the 80-20 rule suggests that 80% of our results actually come from just 20% of our effort. Yeah. So the key is to figure out what those high-impact tasks are
Okay.
and focus your energy on those.
Mm-hmm. So how would that apply to, like, my situation? You know how I've been wanting to learn that new programming language,
Right.
but I've been struggling to find the time because my job is just so demanding.
I see. So in your case, it would be about figuring out what aspects of learning that language
Yeah.
are most crucial for your goals
Hmm.
and focusing on those first
Okay.
instead of trying to master every single detail right away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's about being strategic with your time and energy,
Right.
not spreading yourself too thin, trying to do everything at once.
And that's where time blocking comes in.
Exactly.
Instead of feeling overwhelmed by this huge to-do list, I can actually block out specific times each day to focus on those high-impact tasks.
Yes.
So instead of trying to squeeze in coding practice whenever I have a free moment,
Yeah.
I could like block out an hour every morning before work when I'm usually most alert
Right.
and just dedicate that time to learning.
Exactly.
That way I'm actually making progress
Yes.
without feeling like it's constantly taking over my personal time.
And that's key, right?
Yeah.
That sense of control over your schedule.
Mhm.
It's a huge part of escaping that always-on mentality.
This is already making me feel better.
Good.
Like I can actually take back my time and energy.
That's great.
But what about those times when work just inevitably bleeds into my personal life?
Yeah.
How do I set boundaries and actually stick to them? Especially when there's this pressure to always be available and responsive.
That's a tough one, for sure. But it's so important to establish those boundaries.
Yeah.
You mentioned one of the sources suggested disconnecting from work emails after 6 p.m.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I like the idea in theory,
Yeah.
But to be honest, I often find myself checking emails late into the evening. I
Mm-mm.
feel like I need to be on just in case something urgent comes up.
I get it.
It's like that fear of missing out or falling behind.
That's a common struggle.
Yeah.
We've become so conditioned to respond to every notification,
Mm.
to be constantly available.
It's hard to break free.
It is. But remember, setting boundaries isn't about being rigid.
Okay.
It's about taking care of yourself
Right.
and creating a sustainable rhythm for your life.
Mm.
Maybe try starting with something smaller,
Okay.
like one night a week, completely tech-free.
Yeah. That feels more manageable.
Right.
And maybe once I'm comfortable with that,
Mm-hmm.
I can gradually, extend those tech-free periods.
Exactly.
Like building a muscle.
It is.
Yeah.
The more we practice setting those boundaries,
Yeah.
the easier it becomes.
So it's not about working less.
No,
It's about working smarter and making sure I'm taking care of myself.
that's it.
Okay, I can get on board with that.
Good.
And that kind of brings us to another big thing, right?
Yeah.
Reframing how we think about rest
Absolutely.
instead of seeing it as something we have to earn
Mhm.
or something we squeeze in if we have spare time. We need to see it as a crucial part of a fulfilling and productive life.
Exactly.
So it's not about being lazy.
No,
It's about recognizing that rest is actually an investment
it is.
in my well-being and my ability to do my best work.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a game changer.
It could be incredibly liberating.
For sure. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting, right? Like we've come to see rest as this like luxury,
Yeah.
this thing we can only do once we've like earned it
Right.
through hard work.
Mm-hmm.
But the stuff you sent me is saying that that mindset is actually like totally backwards.
Well, yeah, I mean, our bodies and minds aren't meant to be on all the time.
Right.
Think about it. Even machines need downtime,
Yeah.
to get maintenance and to recharge.
Sure.
We're no different.
Okay.
And actually, research has shown that this chronic stress,
Yeah.
the kind that hustle culture often fuels,
Mm.
that can have a really negative impact on things like our cognitive function,
Oh, wow.
creativity, even our decision-making ability.
So you're saying that pushing myself to the limit,
Yeah.
even if it feels productive in the moment,
Right.
could actually be making me worse in the long run.
Exactly. It's like you're sabotaging your own performance. And when we don't give ourselves enough rest and recovery,
Yeah.
we're way more likely to burn out.
Right.
And burnout can show up in a bunch of different ways.
Like what?
Well, you might feel emotionally exhausted,
Okay.
cynical, detached from your work.
Right.
You could even have physical symptoms like headaches,
Mm-hmm.
digestive issues, insomnia.
So it's like I'm running on fumes,
Yeah.
pushing myself further and further until I just hit a wall.
Right?
And then it's not just my work that suffers, it's like my whole life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a really important point.
Hmm.
Hustle culture often blurs the lines between work and personal life.
Yeah, for sure.
It creates this expectation that we should be on all the time,
Mm-hmm.
which can lead to problems in relationships,
True.
neglected hobbies, just a general feeling of being overwhelmed and out of control.
It's like we're sacrificing our well-being just to be productive.
Yeah.
And in the end, we're not even getting the results we want.
And, if we zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture,
Mm.
we can see how hustle culture can actually hurt innovation and creativity.
Really?
Yeah, because when we're constantly in go mode,
Mm-hmm.
we don't give ourselves the space for reflection,
Okay.
for deep thinking, for those aha moments that often lead to breakthroughs.
So to really do our best work and live our best lives,
Yeah.
we need to embrace rest and rejuvenation as
As
part of
it
the
is.
process.
Exactly.
But that's so hard when we're constantly being told to hustle harder, never give up sleep when you're dead.
Right.
How do we even start to shift our mindset away from this pressure to perform?
Well, one powerful strategy that I saw in the stuff you sent is cultivating mindfulness.
Mindfulness. Okay.
Yeah, it could involve things like meditation,
Okay.
yoga,
Mm-hmm.
or even just taking a few minutes each day to focus on your breath and connect with your body.
So like a little mental vacation.
Yeah.
A way to just hit pause on all the noise and demands.
Exactly. Mindfulness practices can really help calm your nervous system,
Okay.
reduce stress hormones,
Mm-hmm.
and bring you back to the present moment.
That sounds nice.
It is.
Yeah.
It allows you to detach from those thoughts about what you should be doing
Yeah.
and reconnect with your inner wisdom and intuition.
So it's about quieting that voice in my head.
Yeah, that inner critic.
Right. The one that's always telling me I'm not doing enough.
Exactly.
And instead tuning into something more compassionate and self-accepting.
Precisely. And as you cultivate that sense of inner peace and stillness,
Yeah.
you'll be better equipped to set those healthy boundaries,
Okay.
prioritize your well-being,
Yeah.
and make choices that are in line with your values.
Rather than just reacting to external pressure.
Right.
It's like I'm taking back my power
You are.
and choosing to live a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
Exactly. Rather than one that's dictated by hustle culture.
You mentioned before that seeking support can be really important in escaping this trap. Yes.
What does that actually look like?
Well, it could involve talking to a therapist
Okay.
who specializes in burnout or stress management.
Mm-hmm.
You could find a mentor
Okay.
who can offer guidance and perspective.
Right.
Or you could even join a support group
Mm.
with people who are going through similar challenges.
So it's about recognizing that I don't have to do this alone,
No, you don't.
that it's okay to ask for help.
It is. There's strength and vulnerability.
But what about those of us who really thrive on external validation?
Yeah.
Who get a sense of worth from achieving goals and getting recognition?
Right.
How do we shift that focus inward and cultivate intrinsic motivation?
That's a great question, and it's something a lot of us struggle with,
I know I do.
especially in a culture that often equates our worth with our productivity.
Yeah.
One approach that was mentioned in one of the sources is to reframe how we think about success.
Okay.
Instead of chasing external validation, we define success on our own terms.
I like that. Based on what truly matters to us.
So aligning my goals with my values
Yes.
and finding fulfillment in the process.
Exactly. Not just focusing on the outcome
Okay.
and recognizing that our worth is inherent. It's not something we have to earn.
Through achievements or accolades.
Right.
This reminds me of something you said earlier about comparison.
Yes.
Especially with social media, where
Yeah.
everyone's always showing their highlight reel.
Exactly.
It's so easy to compare my struggles to someone else's perfect online life.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that social media often presents a very distorted view of reality.
Right.
Everyone faces challenges and setbacks.
Even those people who seem like they're killing it.
Even them.
So instead of playing the comparison game, I need to focus on my own journey,
Yes.
celebrate my own progress,
Exactly.
and define success in a way that feels authentic and meaningful to me.
Precisely. And as you shift your focus inward and cultivate self-acceptance,
Yeah.
you'll be less reliant on external validation to feel worthy and fulfilled.
It's about recognizing that I am enough,
Yes.
just as I am,
Exactly.
regardless of what I achieve or how productive I am.
That's a powerful message
It is.
and something we all need to hear.
Especially those of us who've been taught that our worth is tied to our output.
Right.
So how do we actually start to internalize that message? How do we go from feeling like we're never enough
Yeah.
to feeling abundance and self-compassion?
Well, one practice that can be really helpful is gratitude.
Gratitude.
Yeah, taking time each day to appreciate the good things in your life,
Okay.
no matter how small they are. That can help shift your focus away from what you lack
Right.
towards what you already have.
So instead of dwelling on what I haven't accomplished yet,
Yeah.
I should focus on the progress I have made, the relationships I cherish,
Right.
the simple things that make me happy.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a sense of contentment and appreciation for the present moment.
Rather than constantly chasing some future goal. Right.
Which I guess doesn't mean I shouldn't have goals or aspirations.
No, not at all.
But it's about finding that balance
Yes.
between striving and accepting.
Exactly. And recognizing that rest and rejuvenation are just as important as hard work and dedication.
It's about creating a life that feels sustainable
Yeah.
and nourishing, both for myself and for the people around me.
Right.
But that can feel really daunting
Yeah.
when we're so stuck in this go, go, go mentality.
Yeah.
So what are some things our listeners can do to start prioritizing balance and well-being in their daily lives?
Yeah, it can feel kind of overwhelming,
Right.
to think about like changing my whole life.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing to remember is that even small changes can make a really big difference.
Like those baby steps we talked about.
Yeah.
Disconnecting from tech for a night, or like scheduling that morning coding session.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the sources you shared
Yeah.
emphasized that it's really important to start small
Right.
and build from there.
So instead of trying to change everything at once,
Right.
I should just pick one thing,
Hmm?
make it a habit,
Yeah.
and then add other strategies gradually.
That's a much more sustainable approach
Okay.
than trying to do a complete overhaul overnight.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's less likely to make you feel like you're failing.
Right, because I get overwhelmed easily.
I understand. And, another key point that was mentioned
Yeah.
was the importance of self-compassion.
Self-compassion.
Yeah.
That's something we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Being kind to ourselves,
Right.
especially when we mess up or
Right.
fall back into old habits.
It's so important to remember that change is a process.
Not a destination.
Exactly.
Some days I'll feel like I'm doing great,
Mhm.
and other days I'll feel like a total failure.
And that's completely normal.
Okay.
The key is to treat yourself with the same kindness
Yeah.
and understanding that you would offer a good friend.
So no beating myself up
No.
when I don't get it perfect.
Exactly. Just acknowledge your effort,
Okay.
learn from your mistakes,
Mm.
and keep moving forward.
And that brings us back to what we were saying before about defining success on my own terms.
Yes.
Instead of letting hustle culture tell me what success should look like, I
Right.
get to decide
Yes.
based on what really matters to me.
Exactly.
So maybe that means
Mhm.
spending more time with my family
Okay.
instead of always trying to get ahead at work.
Yeah.
Or maybe it means
Mhm.
focusing on a passion project,
Right.
even if it doesn't make a lot of money.
It's about creating a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
I like that.
And that might look different for everyone.
That's true. There's
right.
no one right way to escape hustle culture.
No, there isn't. It's about finding what works for you,
Okay.
experimenting,
Yeah.
being patient.
And remembering it's a journey,
Exactly.
not a destination.
This has been a really great conversation.
It has. I've learned so much.
I'm glad to hear that.
You've given me so much to think about.
Good. I hope our listeners feel like they can actually make some changes in their lives.
Me too.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with one final question.
Yeah, I'm all ears.
What does a truly balanced and fulfilling life look like to you?
Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah, something for them to ponder,
Yeah.
to really envision,
Mhm.
and to start creating.
Right.
And remember, you don't have to do this alone.
No, you don't.
There are so many people out there
Yeah.
who are embracing this more balanced and sustainable way of life.
Right.
And we're all here to support each other.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
It has.
Until next time,
Mm-hmm.
remember to prioritize your well-being,
Yes,
set healthy boundaries,
for sure.
and embrace the power of rest.
And never forget that your worth is not tied to your productivity.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.